All right, I think I'm live. Hope everything works well. If you can hear me, maybe somebody can send me a message just to make sure everything works well. All right, I heard from Vipeka, says it works. Okay, so everything should be in good shape. I'm just going to give it a minute or so before I start talking away. We are talking about hat tossing. The question was about, I think, hat tossing, particularly when going into tolt or transition to tolt. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask right now. I don't think we had many questions on the videos. It's a pretty specific topic, which is totally fine. And we like all kinds of questions and any kind of question. This was something that you guys wanted to hear about. But if you have any questions right now, right here, you obviously feel free to write in a comment in the chat function there, and I will answer it for sure. I have some comments myself that some highlights I want to share with you. I always watch the videos again before, so I don't really watch the videos before I put them online. I just make them. Vibeke just videotapes me and puts them on, and I just talk about it uncut, and then I watch the videos before the live, the Q&A. Make some notes, and sometimes I want to add something or maybe correct something or change something or something I forgot or something. So I think that's a good way to do it. And I just finished watching those two videos, which I always do here right before the Q&As to prepare. I like the saying that somebody said to me once. I can't remember where it came from. It was some trainer, I think. It was something like this: we don't live in a perfect world, so let's not pretend we do. And the truth of the matter is that horses get all kinds of riders. Horses get all kinds of work in life, and we have all kinds of horses. Here at our farm, in the summertime, we have about 120 horses. We have 80, 90 horses or so for our tracks. We have another 20 for our shorter rides. These are horses who are ridden by different kinds of people, and especially the short riding horses. For the short rides, we get all kinds of people here just kind of off the street. They come and do a ride here for an hour and a half, or 2.5. Those people often don't know very much at all. Tracking riders are obviously more advanced riders, because that's a more advanced kind of riding. We do our best to obviously keep our horses in as good shape as we can. We think they look great. We take very good care of them. We feed them very well. We're really careful about all that, and make sure they have a good life. But what we also do, which I think is very important, is that we do not do any rides here, short or long, without having some preparation lessons. Having a short prep lesson for a beginner or any kind of rider to get to know the horse before you head out on the trail is a huge benefit when it comes to maintaining the horse's qualities. But on the same time, when horses are just ridden outside most of the time, not much technical work, they create some habits. They kind of learn their ways. They get stiff. There maybe not a lot of bending is done. The riders are on them, are not thinking about if they're leaning on this shoulder or that shoulder, as long as they behave and are smooth and go where they're supposed to go. So these horses kind of get into the jobs and do very well at it, and they take good care of themselves too. And riders are usually quite neutral, but they get into kind of habits of being, crooked and stiff and this and that. And this horse we had on the video here was an example of that. Vindur. Vindur is stiff. He is crooked. He's going to learn to do his ways. He's learned to block out certain things and not do other things he doesn't like. And this kind of, over the years, he's older now. He might be 19 or something. Over the years, he's this developed, one-sidedness. He likes to lean through one shoulder and overbend on the other side and things like that. But he's healthy and he does his job, and people love him because he's super smooth. He's great outside. But we try to re-educate him kind of once in a while, and we try to, in the down times, we train them a little bit ourselves in the arena. We use them for lessons like this to try to kind of tune them up, so to speak. and that can help a lot, and he obviously, as you could see, he needed that. My promise to you in this program we have here is I will show it to you the way it is, and I'm not hiding anything. I'm not putting on any kind of show. My only show is showing you how I work with certain things. When you ask for something, in this case head tossing, I literally tried quite a few horses before we made this video to try to find one that was tossing his head. I couldn't easily find one like that. Winter was the closest thing. He was a little bit kind of frustrated at the reins, as you could see, and he was not too happy with my rein contact, and so I felt like that was kind of qualified as a similar issue, at least would require similar work. So like I said, my goal is to just show you exactly how it is. Let's not pretend it is something it isn't. Let's not pretend every horse on this farm is perfect. Let's not pretend that I'm always right and things like that. So I do my best to bring you a good example of the question that you have and show you a real uncut live session on how we work with this. So that's my goal, and that's what we got in this case. What I wanted to point out, a few things on the work, but also when we are, when I'm showing you how I work with something, I try to cover, what can we say, as big part of the process as possible. So it doesn't, so sometimes I might be fast tracking a little bit. So in this case, it's a good example. You can see it in many other videos too. And I try to mention it and try to say it. So I encourage you to listen to what I'm saying, not just look at it. It would, in some cases, it is good when you start to maybe try to replicate that work, to maybe do it in longer time. So maybe take the preparation part of the video, the first part of the video, and spend more time on that. Don't try to cover as much as I'm doing, because I'm sometimes doing it a little bit, we can say, quote, too fast, just to show you a little bit more, bigger part of the process. So let's say, for example, with Winter, this horse in this video, he is stiff and he's quite crooked. And maybe it would be a good idea to just spend some time just working on the stiffness before you start to work on contact, or something like that, something of that nature. Just going to take those preparation earlier steps of the video and think to yourself, okay, maybe I should just spend a few times doing that before I try to go to the end of the video. And that can often be a good idea, because you can never really do it too slow, but you can't do it too fast. And I'm a little bit pushing the limit a little bit sometimes, like I said, just to try to show you as far as I can possibly go, even though it might not always be perfect. What I'm showing you, I'm kind of pushing you in that direction. All right. Head tossing. I see, as I pointed out there, I think there can be a few reasons for this. I think one reason can be the horse just doesn't understand or doesn't trust the hand. Doesn't understand the rein cues, doesn't trust the hand. This can be a big issue. Doesn't understand this, then that the fact that he never got trained to understand it, never got trained to have contact, never got trained to be ridden with contact, to understand how the rein contact should work. There's never been any kind of a clear communication there, maybe, or not yet. Doesn't trust can be that, or it can just be something happened. He has a reason not to trust the hand. Somebody's been hanging on to the mouth too much. Somebody's done something that creates misunderstanding. See, when the horse doesn't trust something, I think it's important to not automatically take that like somebody was mean to the horse. I know very, very, very few examples of somebody purposely being mean to the horse, but I know quite a few examples of horses losing trust in people just because of lack of knowledge, or lack of skill, or lack of communication somehow. So the horse doesn't understand, and then they lose the trust because they don't know what's expected of them. So I have no reason to think that a horse like Winter has ever been roughly treated. I know at least the last, I don't know, 20 years he's been here, or 15 or something, he's always been super well treated. But he has had plenty of misunderstanding, so to speak, in his life, because he's had all kinds of riders um, try to communicate with him, and maybe not always the same communication system, or for sure not the same communication system. So that can create a little bit of misunderstanding that can lead to some kind of lack of trust or lack of understanding. Definitely, it can be a result of stiffness. So, and I think that's another good example of this horse. His frustration on the rein is clearly partly due to stiffness, and then crookedness, kind of leading from that too. He's learned to just kind of go straight and lean one side to the other, things like that. I definitely also think it's a lack of connection. Lack of connection from leg to rein is typically what it is. Lack of that kind of fine, nice connection between leg and rein. In his case, it's probably partly because of lack of forward, and then lack of forward towards a soft receiving hand. This connection is very important and very, very tricky, and often, I think, a part of the reason horse starts to, throw his head around, be unhappy with the reins because he's not in a good physical position. So because of the lack of the connection, the top line is not properly connected. Because the top line is not properly connected, the horse is not in a ideal position or connection to be steady and content with the connection. In some cases, maybe uncomfortable because they end up in a top line position that is not comfortable for them to be in. They're too high and the withers are down, or the back is soft, or whatever that is. So that connection is very delicate and complicated sometimes, and when that gets bad enough, we can say, then sometimes we start to see horses get kind of pissed at the reins. Of course, it can also be a physical problem, like I pointed out. When we have issues that we think are quite big, it is always a good idea to have your horse physically checked. It can be a mouth issue, it can be some kind of physical chiropractic issue in that sense. It can be, I can tell you a story actually. We had a mare here, we have a mare here that we've been training, and she was very kind of excited and jumpy when we got her quite a few months ago. It went quite well on the tracks in the summer. She did quite well and was getting quite good. It got a little bit of break after the tracks, and then we started training her again. And she has this issue that first, when I got in the saddle, she's very tense and tight. Doesn't want to, she doesn't do anything crazy, but she's really like kind of nervous and almost like she wants to buck, but she doesn't. So you have to circle her a little bit slowly, and then she kind of gets okay, and then she's fine. I felt like the way I usually do it here is that I work with the horses and for a while, and when I feel like I'm up I'm kind of in a corner, up against the wall with something, like there was like, wait a minute, we worked with this horse for a long time, we taught her a lot of things, she's quite educated, her gaits are quite good, it seems to be a nice horse. Why is this still an issue when I get on her, especially if she hasn't been ridden? Why is this still an issue? Why is she still tense about that? It doesn't quite make sense. And based on all the training we put in, it's too much. So I called the chiropractor friend of mine, a really good chiropractor. She came out here and looked at the horse. Found out that her suggestion is that there's some tension there in the rib cage, and maybe at some point she had a fractured or a broken rib, maybe as a baby, or fell or got kicked or something. And so certain movements and breathing kind of can cause it to create some soreness, maybe a little bit, some scar tissue or something like that. And maybe that's the reason she was good when she was on the tracks, because then she was moving more and breathing more, and everything got loose and better. And now we are working with this in mind. We're using thicker pads, and we're doing certain exercises to try to loosen those things up. And sure enough, she's already much better. So sometimes there's a physical issue that we have to rule out. It's not the first thing I always do. Maybe some people do that, but when you have and probably not a bad idea, but when you have over 100 horses, it's kind of hard to have a chiropractor on payroll. But we definitely use all those professionals when we think we need that. But whatever the problem is, assuming it's not a physical issue, the work is very similar. So whether the horse lost trust in the rein, whether the horse never learned the rein, whether the horse is just stiff and crooked, we have to just go through those steps. We go through the steps. Is the horse supple left and right? Is he balanced left and right? Can he handle rein contact? Can I ride? Is he coming off the leg? Is he in front of my leg or is he behind the leg? Etc. Etc. The system is more or less the same. This I run into quite a bit in my teaching. I get, and training, we get horses with stories. I get students and horses with stories. This horse was abused there and this there, and he came from a difficult place there, and he went through this, and this one went through this. And great, it's good to know that, and I appreciate people telling me that. I like to hear that, and it's nice to know. But most of the time, I think I can say it doesn't really change the work. The system is more or less the same. You go through the same system. Aside from obviously if there is a physical issue that needs to be taken care of. But why the horse is behaving the way it's behaving or reacting the way it's reacting does not dramatically change the approach I take. I still need to make sure the horse listens to my forward driving aid. Still need to make sure my horse bends well left and right. Still need to make sure my horse is supple and can be in between the aids and can accept soft rein contact, etc., etc. Before I can affect the way the horse goes. So, and then we obviously need to figure out where are the holes in the horse's training, and that's kind of what we go through. We just start to kind of work our way through the horse. Okay, is the horse listening to the leg? Is he behind my leg or is he actually front? Can he go forward? That's often the first step. Can he bend left and right? Is there resistance anywhere that we run into? When we run into a resistance, like we did with him already, like there was a resistance to forward going, then of course that's the number one issue. And there was a resistance to bending left and right, then that's issue number two. And that's how we kind of work through it. All right. The bend is always very helpful with issues like this, or when you have connection problem or the arguing habits, kind of sometimes that also becomes a habit. It is kind of like to kind of protect themselves a little bit. So the bend is so helpful. We use the bend for so many things: circles and serpentines and flexing and bending and all kinds of things. Big circles, small circles, from big to small and small to big, and all those bending variations can help us so much to soften up the horse's neck, under neck, reduce the ability of the horse to kind of brace against you, things like that. And it's just everything gets softer and calmer often on a circle, especially if you take some time to train that and teach the horse, bend too slow and all those things that we talked about before. Let me uncheck my notes here. When you have this kind of head tossing, bit issues, whatever you want to call it, mouth issues, maybe you can put it all, call it all like some kind of mouth issues. That's where the horse is pulling or tossing or whatever it is a connection issue. It is important, I think, and like in this case that we had on this video with Vindur, is you need to spend time softening the horse and get him to accept the contact. This is very important. Get the horse soft and get to accept the contact. And keep in mind, when we are talking about contact, it's not just about your hands. Contact is about leg to rein, back to front. And then, of course, number one, the horse has to be in front of the leg. The horse has to listen to the forward driving. And we call that being in front of the leg. And then be able to accept the soft contact on the front. And as I pointed out here, I think we often make the mistake, as I pointed out in the video, the first video at least, I think we often make the mistake, as often riders make the mistake, I made this mistake many times and probably still do, I try not to, is to start to focus on the position of the head before you have the contact in order. So if you have a horse that's not able to accept soft contact, he is either avoiding the contact, he's leaning on your hand, or he's going between on and off, and he's not steady and you don't have that elastic feeling between your leg and rein and leg and rein. And sometimes it's like the accordion, you kind of move together and apart, apart and together, and you kind of have the feeling that they have this elastic feeling in between your hand and your leg. There will be no consistent, steady, proper head position. I think, first we have to have some contact, and then we can start to, very often, as we get the good contact, we get the proper form. It's like a bonus. But that cannot come first. I don't think that by just putting the head in one place, everything gets better. It might be a part of it, but that's not how it quite works. I think, like I sometimes say, if the body of the horse works correctly, the head starts to fall into the right place. And when the body works correctly, maybe we can add to this, when the body of the horse works correctly, you get a proper contact, the head falls into the right place. Something like that. So my point is, focus on the feeling, not so much the looks. Often you see horses, like riders are like, getting their heads into a place, and yes, the head comes down, and then it goes up, and then it goes down, and then it goes up, because there is no contact to maintain it consistently, or to get it consistent. All right, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to go through my notes here. Making sure I'm not forgetting anything. Yep, I think that's all for me. All that I have here. Great, thanks for checking in. We're going to work on the next videos here for your next question. I'm not sure what it is. Again, the system is you ask questions, you come up with the topics. All this whole collection of few hundred videos is all the students asking questions and me doing my best to answer it, or at least coming up with an idea of how to work on things. It doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. It doesn't mean there's not another way, maybe even a better way. I just don't know it yet, or didn't think of it. I could answer your question differently next time. Who knows? I try to find real issues in my barn the best I can. I try to find real project, and I work with it in real time. That means the videos are different. Some are better than others. Sometimes I get better results, but at least I always give you an idea what it can be, what kind of answer it can be to these questions. And that's how I would want to be taught, and that's how I like to be taught, and I hope that's what you like too. At least we are getting a huge increase in our subscriptions, so that's great news. We've been getting a lot of new subscriptions, and people seem to stay, and we get good comments. So that's great news. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and thanks for checking it out, and we'll see you next time. Take care.